Thanos is death. Thanos is God. Thanos is inevitable. Or so he would have you believe. And he no doubt believes it himself, to a point. But deep down, this mad titan, this conqueror of galaxies, still struggles with the same affliction that would be the downfall to most wannabe dictators: inadequacy. Because for all his boasting, his power, his lust for death and conquest, he still falls short on his ultimate goal, his one reason for being. He can't get the girl he likes to like him back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's back up a bit. Thanos, for those who don't know because you haven't been paying attention to pop culture the last 10 years, is one of the biggest bads in the Marvel Universe. Up until recently, despite his threat level in the books, Thanos was a relatively obscure villain, known mostly to hardcore comic fans. But ever since his build-up and subsequent premiere in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, played brilliantly by Josh Brolin, everyone now knows the power of the Mad Titan. But in order to make the character work on the big screen, a large part of his character had to be changed, most notably his primary motivation. In the films, Thanos is driven by his need for balance in the universe. He believes overpopulation and overconsumption would destroy the universe. He felt it was his role and his right to destroy half of all life using the now infamous Infinity Gauntlet. And while this motivation technically originates from the comics in an issue of the Silver Surfer, it's not what's driven the character over the many years. What's actually driven him has been his love for a woman, but not just any woman. The one Thanos seeks to woo is none other than the physical embodiment of death itself, which, in the Marvel Universe, tends to look like either that overdramatic goth girl in your theater class or something you'd see in a Halloween store if you went to the adult section. Hey, no judgment, man, like what you like. That being said, his fascination with death wasn't necessarily his choice. Mistress Death, yes, that's really what she's called, actually chose him as one of her, quote, living instruments from the day he was born on Titan. Thanos was actually born as a member of the Eternals, an immortal species created by the Celestials when they experimented on proto-humanity. But while the Eternals appear to be a race of seemingly perfect immortals, fate would deem that Thanos would never stand as an accepted member of his species. Born with an unknown condition that gave him the physical characteristics of the Eternals' rival species, the Deviants, his mother held her newborn baby in her arms and immediately tried to kill him, claiming that he had the eyes of a monster. While she was stopped by his father, time would prove his mother correct. Thanos originally started out as a pacifist, but even from the beginning, he always had a fascination with death, not Mistress Death, that would come later. However, he didn't start out as violent. If anything, he just started out as a brilliant loner, smarter than all his peers but judged for his appearance. The failed attempt on his life from his first caregiver created a deep longing to be loved that would never be fully fulfilled. This is where our Mistress Death decides to come into the picture, taking the form of a young classmate who convinces him to go to a cave with his friends, only for his friends to be eaten by the creatures living within. Death uses this opportunity to convince him, yet again, to go back to the cave and murder every single creature that dwells within. This would begin Thanos' bloodlust, as he becomes more and more obsessed with dissecting different creatures, looking for answers to the questions that have haunted him since his birth. Why am I different? What is my destiny? Where in creation are the answers hidden? You will not find the answers on Titan, but not from lack of trying, eventually leading to the murder of 2 of his classmates and his own mother, all while death continues to egg him on. Thanos leaves, for a time, to explore the universe, spending many years with many different women and siring many children in the process. But no matter what he does, he can't escape the pull of the only one he feels understands him, Lady Death. After years of rejection, Death accepts Thanos' courtship, but at a cost. This leads to Thanos traveling and murdering all his children to appease the one he loves. This only opens the door to more violence and death that would spread far beyond his initial goals. He continues his conquest throughout the galaxy, attempting to cause enough death to finally be accepted by the woman he loves. But it's never enough. Death insists that he must become a god to be worthy of her affection. When Thanos protests and tries to get his guards to take her away, Death finally reveals her true nature, that he is the only one who can see her, and she is the only one that can truly see the real him. The truth of this drives Thanos mad, resulting in him embracing his godlike status, decimating his homeworld and leaving his father to rot. It's in this moment that he truly becomes the feared Thanos, the Mad Titan, continuously killing and conquering galaxies in the name of death. But for all intents and purposes, and there's no nice way to put this, Death catfished him. Because once Thanos became the mad god he was destined to be, Mistress Death, his loved one, his betrothed, love of his life, immediately stopped giving a rat's ass about him. But you know, she'd throw him a bone every now and again before leaving him to rot. Again. This is something that happens repeatedly throughout Thanos' villainous career. No matter how much he kills or conquers, he can never seem to convince Death to love him the way he wants to be loved. No matter how much he worships her, she refused to fully return his affection. Even when he murders half of all life in the universe and makes a big frickin' throne tribute to her, the most it gets him is her continued presence. But Thanos never stopped trying to win her affection, killing planets, ascending to godhood, even wiping out other universes. All for the hope that he'll give her what he was always denied. And the continuous rejection he receives over and over again by the one woman he wants more than anything else the multiverse has to offer leaves Thanos in the last position you would think he would ever be in, unworthy. And in many ways, he's always felt that way, all because of Mistress Death. His destiny to be a harbinger of doom instantly deprived him of the things that make life worth living. He isn't allowed friendship, and his attempt to do so end in death. He's not allowed love because the people who are supposed to love him immediately try to kill him. He's not allowed companionship because his obsession for Lady Death makes all his relationships and the children conceived from them feel hollow and meaningless. All Thanos has ever wanted was to be loved and understood, and yet the only one who seems to be able to do exactly that is Death itself. Or to be more precise, able, but unwilling. She doesn't really love him, and she never truly will. But she's more than happy to stream along for as long as she can to still carry out destruction in her name. That's not to say that she's never allowed him to be with her. There was a time after Thanos died at the hands of Drax the Destroyer during the Annihilation event where he could be with his beloved in the afterlife. He was eventually rejected again and thrust back into the mortal plane to deal with an invasion from another, cancerous universe. It's a long story, we're not going to get into it. But even after destroying the threat and killing said universe, Death still spurred Thanos' advances, not saying a word or even acknowledging his presence. She simply disappears and leaves him to his rage and anguish. What that leaves us with is an image of a man desperate to win over the affection of a woman who will not only never feel the same way, but will use his feelings against him at every turn. Well, we have a man who blusters and boasts about his power and achievement, but is powerless to accomplish the one achievement that actually matters to him. And when you really get down to it, Thanos, the Mad Titan, the galactic-level threat, the champion of death, is really kind of pathetic. And worse yet, deep down, Thanos knows it. He admits it to himself in the story he's best known for, the Infinity Gauntlet, in which he has gone through great lengths to assemble all 6 Infinity Stones to ascend to godhood, all to appease his great love. And what's the first thing she does upon seeing his mighty ascendance? She turns her back on him. And she continues to turn her back on him, despite how he pleads and begs for her attention. So he builds a massive shrine in her honor, forever pronouncing his undying affection for his mistress. And yet, still, she spurns him. So in an act of submission, Thanos seeks to earn Death's attention through the infamous means you're all no doubt aware of. A snap of his finger, and half the population of the universe is snuffed away. Surely this would win him the approval he desires, right? No. No matter what horror Thanos can conjure, nothing seems to appease the one woman he wants more than anything. And it's only after he has done literally all he could to win her affection that he is forced to confront the truth revealed to him through Adam Warlock. For all the power Thanos has succeeded in obtaining, he always manages to lose. And the reason for that? Deep down, he doesn't feel like he deserves it. He doesn't feel worthy. Because how can you be worthy when the woman you love looks at you with either disdain or indifference? He doesn't feel worthy, so he overcompensates. He acts bigger than he is. He makes himself more powerful and stands over everyone else, to act like he's better than everyone else. But he's not. He's wasting so much of his time pining and longing for affection from someone who will never return it. And he will always feel used and rejected as a result. Even when he swears off Mistress Death once and for all, he still finds that she's never far from him. She's still waiting on the sidelines, waiting for him to come back to her, because he always does. And she'll always use him yet again. For proof, look no further than Donny Cates' recent Thanos story, Thanos Lives, in which Thanos travels to the future to help his older self finish off the last few scraps of life in the universe. In doing so, future Thanos believes that only then will death love him with open arms. While present Thanos looks at the display with disgust, future Thanos treats it like an inevitability. Thanos will always serve and long for Lady Death. There's simply no alternative. So when all is said and done, what the mighty Thanos ends up representing, the real warning he's trying to convey, is the needless suffering of unrequited love. Unrequited love is the ultimate painful trap. It starts out innocently enough with a crush or a fascination with someone, but quickly turns into a obsession that doesn't let up. And the more you fall for this person, the worse the suffering becomes. Because then you build your entire identity over your affection for them. You decide that they're the one you're supposed to be with if only they'd see it too. And then you decide that if you just change yourself the right way, do the right things, and borderline worship them, then they will eventually return your love and you can finally be happy. But that's not really how it works, is it? In the end, all you do is pine and suffer over someone who will never feel the same way about you. But because you have that small glimmer of hope, that need is exceptionally hard to get rid of. And you end up tying your own self-worth so much to how they see you that the fact that they don't see you the same way leaves you feeling lonely and worthless. Now, more often than not, the person you have feelings for are either completely unaware of your feelings, or they know and they're trying to either ignore you or let you down easy in the hopes that you'll move on. But in the worst case scenario, this person will realize your need for them and use that to keep you on a leash. And that is the worst kind of toxic partner. And this can happen to men or women alike. Now, if you're watching this right now and you're currently in the situation, I'm going to be mean to you for a second, but it's for your own good. I'm sure you think you're a nice person, you're doing all these nice things and being this person you think they want you to be, and if you keep that up, maybe, just maybe, they'll notice you. But let's be clear. No matter how nice you think you are, or what kind of kind acts you do for them, they are under no obligation to feel anything for you. You are not owed romantic feelings for being nice and or a good friend. If that's the reason you're being a nice person, you are not a nice person. You are just trying to earn them like a trophy, and that's not how real romantic relationships are supposed to work. And while we're getting harsh truths out of the way, here's another one. The person you think you like is not the person you think they are. A big part of unrequited love is that the image of the person in your head is often the most idealized version of them, the person you most want to be. It does not, more often than not, reflect reality. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is because these are truths that are holding you back. You're not going to win them over. They will not return your feelings. It's just not going to happen. And quite frankly, the harder you try, the more pathetic you end up looking in the long run. So instead of being a slave to your feelings and your loneliness, it's time to start, right now, the long and hard process of moving on. It is crucial for your own happiness and sense of self that you find a way to move away from this person you've committed this much wasted time into. They're going to live their lives wherever they're going to, and you need to accept that, because it's not going to change. So whether that means finally saying how you feel and dealing with the rejection, or moving away from them entirely, you need to find a way to separate your self-esteem from their feelings towards you. And it's not easy. God, it's not easy. But it's worth it. Because once you spend some real time with yourself away from your unhealthy and toxic feelings, you can actually spend the time you need to learn that you are worthy of real love and affection. Not just from somebody else, but from you. It's time to start treating yourself with kindness. It's time to treat yourself with affection and rebuild your identity free from the worthlessness that comes from unrequited love. You might think you're strong. You may think you're powerful and no one can stop you. But as long as who you are is tied to someone who doesn't care about you, all you are is an insecure person playing pretend. Now, when you start to move on, the worst kind of person that likes your feelings towards them because it means they can manipulate you will likely try to pull you back in. But you can't let them, because they are bad for you. And this will only lead you down the path of more suffering. To be clear, in this example, we're referring strictly to apathetic people who just want to use you, not close friends who just want to stay that way. It's possible to stay friends with someone you've had strong feelings for and still move on, but it is extremely difficult, and will likely require that you give each other space for a while. Thanos might seem powerful and almighty, but he's just a sad, lonely man who can't have the one thing that he thinks will make him happy, and he will always be miserable because of it. But you don't have to be. You can find your own path, you can learn to love yourself, and eventually, once you move on from the suffering brought on by unrequited love, you can find someone you can love who will truly love you in return. Unrequited love can feel like death, but you can always choose to pursue life instead.